So, hello, expert investors. We got Mr. Andrew Topping here from Lugui Associates. Did I pronounce that correct?
Pretty good, close enough.
Andrew's been an accountant for just over 10 years and no gray hairs yet. So,
there's some there.
They're coming. And what I really like about Andrew is he's straightforward. And I didn't make up the cliche, but they say accountants are boring, but I don't find you boring. I appreciate your straightforwardness and your ability to kind of get to the core of the answer right away. And that's what I've noticed and appreciated about the kind of way you deliver information. So that's why I wanted you to present today, or on January 22nd. So a couple of things I wanted to run by you is our quick story. You know, getting an accountant for me was one of the last pieces of the puzzle of my real estate team. And I ran through a few and had some pretty crappy experiences. And you know, I know this is an obvious question, but I wanted your quick take on it. Is it important to have like a real estate investor focused accountant?
I think it's important. I don't think it's required, but I think it's certainly important. There are a lot of intricacies within the Tax Act that are specific to, you know, how rental properties work, how flips work, how short-term rentals work. So I think there's a lot of things that could be different that just a sort of generalist accountant may not be aware of.
Yeah, I find that also when, you know, I'm talking to a new investor and they're like, hey, I want to start flipping, and you know, my friend bought it for this price and sold it for this price. You know, I let them talk, and I'm like, well, what was the real profit after tax? And then they're you can see their eyes go like all squirrely and stuff. And that's where I get into, hey, you better make sure you get a good accountant. So for sure, and certainly depending on, you know, your comment about, you know, I heard from, or somebody told me about, or I hear that so many times, and you know, not necessarily everybody does everything the way it's supposed to be done, and there's a lot of gray area for sure. But so and so told me, or I read it on the internet, those are generally the first lines of things that go horribly wrong. Yeah. So we're going to talk about like tax deferral and all that kind of stuff on the masterclass. So I won't go crazy if someone's at the door here. Don't mind that. But one other thing I wanted to kind of get your take on, or at least a really high level take on. There's been a lot of noise. I'm getting emails, and I'm sure you are getting questions too about these tax changes that the Trudeau's Liberals are kind of proposing. And it doesn't seem like there's much information out there, but without going into crazy detail, we'll save it for the masterclass. Should we be scared, or is it something we got to kind of wait and see?
I think it's a matter of waiting and seeing, because right now everything's proposed. So there's nothing concrete other than the foreign buyers tax. I think is something that is going to happen. That 1% that they've been talking about. I don't know how many people that's going to actually affect, but that is something that I think is going to move forward. The rest of it is really at a high level. They're talking about, well, we have these mandates to look at these things.
Yes.
So there's nothing even concrete as to how they're actually going to address a bunch of the things that have been mentioned. So right now, I think it's a case of wait and see, and just to see what those things might look like. At the same time, from a lot of what has been said, they're talking about, you know, big investment groups like the real estate investment trusts and things like that. They have sort of said, you know, they're not going after the small independent investors in real estate. So how much of an impact there's going to be on sort of the regular, you know, few properties, 4, 5, 6 properties, maybe, how much impact there might be on those kind of people. It may be non-existent. There may be no impact whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like better news, but we'll dive into it a little bit more piece by piece on the masterclass. But I'm always of the opinion, when it comes to especially the government stuff, the stuff that we can't control, it's better to get ahead of that trend than be catching up afterwards. So I think it's good that we get this information out there. Absolutely,
yeah. So I mean, it certainly, especially from an accounting perspective and also from a legal, it's better to plan into than try to get out of. So certainly from that perspective, knowing what might come and how that might affect you is absolutely beneficial.
Okay, last quick question, something I wanted to touch on in the masterclass also is just tax planning. Like, how, do you advise that for, I mean, I know as every accountant might advise it, but how critical is it, or more critical is it for real estate investors with assets to tax plan for, you know, estate tax or family trust and all that kind of stuff?
So it's huge. And I think more so than some other assets that are out there. Owning real estate, and I see it all the time where, you know, someone passes away and they've got, let's say, 5 properties. The beneficiaries of that estate end up having to sell properties in order to pay the tax on the estate assets. So certainly planning is a huge thing, whether that be in the form of, as you mentioned, trusts or corporations, or, you know, something as simple as life insurance. But with a point where you kind of have an idea of what your liability might be, so you can plan towards that, as opposed to just getting a general life insurance policy. So I think, especially with real estate investors, planning is absolutely beneficial. I mean, estate tax from a probate perspective, there's ways to avoid some of that, or at least reduce some of it. So certainly planning with real estate investors, I think, is a really important piece to the overall.
Got it. Perfect. So you mentioned something about corporations. 100%. We're going to talk about corporations also. Everybody wants to know about that. That's I feel like I can give that explanation myself, but I'll we'll save it for you on January 22nd. So again, I want to encourage everyone to sign up. The button's just below the video here. We'll be on at 9 a.m. and we'll be done, I promise you, before 11. And this will be recorded. So if you want this information and you can't make it, you got soccer practice or dance practice or ballet like I got, you know what I mean? All you have to do is register, and you can listen to Andrew Topping's beautiful voice whenever you want. So we'll leave it at that. Andrew, I appreciate you doing this quick intro there. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Talk soon.
For sure.